Thank you. Hi guys, good morning. Thank you all for coming today. I'll be here sharing my testimony. So a little introduction about myself. I'm Shelly from Tokyo House Church led by my shepherds, Danny and Joyce Lee. Love them very, very much. And before I start, I just want to say how grateful I am that they've opened their hearts, homes, ears, and life to me. And my boyfriend, Danny Huyn, in the past half year. Words can't really express how thankful I am to have them in Tokyo House Church in my life. So thank you very much. Love you guys very, very much. So as for my testimony, it's a little long, but I was actually debating on how much to talk about since the past couple of years, and truthfully, my entire life has been quite like a roller coaster. But after praying to God and considering what kind of impact I want to make with my story, I decided to start from the very, very beginning. My parents and I were Chinese immigrants who came to America to fulfill their American dream. Unfortunately, what that meant is for most of my childhood, I actually grew up in poverty with around a 20K salary a year for my entire childhood. So I was immensely alone since most of my time was used to kind of clean the house, take care of my sister, as my parents spent all their time trying to make enough money or trying to just get by. So on top of not having enough money to look cool, because that's all I cared about at 7 years old, I had awkward mannerisms and repeated a lot of the outfits when I grew out in my clothes, which led to a lot of bullying for most of my childhood in school. Where was God in this, you ask? I was an avid churchgoer, actually, as a small child, and I love the community and the kindness that seemed to radiate out their hearts, and it was the only reprieve I had from the loneliness and emptiness I had felt at home. By the time that middle school rolled around, I actually had a very different experience at church. I found that church was not a kind and understanding place as it appeared on the surface, and much of the people I've talked to were filled with hypocrisy and pride. I witnessed people discriminating against vulnerable populations and people being controlled and taken advantage of due to abuse of power. So unfortunately, at that time, I found myself running away from my bullies at school, my disappointing reality at home, and running to, unfortunately, bullies at church. By the time that high school came, I completely turned away from church, disgusted by the discrepancy between the words of Jesus and the actions of the church members. I was very deeply depressed, and soon after leaving the church, I actually lost my desire to live. I no longer cared about myself, and I fully believe that the universe is an unfeeling and a cold one, and one that always submits to entropy and chaos where goodness can never survive. I decided that I would live only for my family, who I believe to deserve a happy and well life. And through that, living for the family, my journey actually took me to medical school, where I decided to commit myself to a life of helping others, partially because I felt that I myself was broken beyond repair. My first year was exceptionally hard. I was working almost full time, partially to make ends meet, and partially because I needed the research experience. Most of my friends at the time were very self-centered and immature, taking advantage of my kindness whenever they had problems, but were never there for me when I needed them the most. I went through a traumatic breakup where I was ghosted for 6 months under the guise of losing contact due to COVID. My parents, who were part of the reason I decided to go to medical school, became unrealistically demanding and lacked empathy for my suffering, increasing the already enlarging chasm between us. My sister became my only source of comfort, but she was only 14 years old when I started medical school, and I couldn't bear to share my demons and my burdens on her shoulders. And so there I was again, alone, and my depression got the best of me, and I almost failed out of medical school. Now, you might understand why I was unsure whether or not I wanted to tell my entire story. I hate having a pity party, but I was so broken, lost, and everything that used to make it worth it for me no longer felt worth it anymore. I would like to say that I would be able to come out of it on my own, but that didn't really happen until I met my current boyfriend, Danny Huyn, who's in the audience right now. He was also having a hard time when we first met, and we decided to become friends because we felt both misunderstood and lost in the world. We both started therapy at the same time and went on a medication together and vowed to come out of our depression together. I slowly left the dark cave I was stuck in, but when I finally came out, I was so angry. I hated everyone and everything. I hated my family. I hated the world. I was angry at how my life has turned out, no matter how hard I tried to escape. I was angry that me, someone who I thought was caring and nice and considerate, was constantly being punished for my kindness. And I thought if there was a God, this God would never receive my respect, because I believe that he is a God of chaos and disorder. With resentment in my heart, I decreased my contact and my relationship with my parents and changed my behavior so much that it actually scared both my toxic and my long-term good friends away. So at this time, Denise, Danny's sister, introduced us to house church with a promise that there were better people that we can become friends with. So strangely enough, even though we were cautious and very wary with our past experiences at church and also my past experiences the last couple of years, we were open to exploring it. So to be honest, for my first Sunday service at New Life, I cried at the end of Pastor Eric's sermon. In fact, I actually cried a lot in house church, but not of pain, but of being emotionally moved. As someone who doesn't cry very often and only cries out of frustration and sadness, this was a really big deal for me. For the first time in my life, I felt such consistent love and support from Danny and Joyce and the members of Tokyo House Church. I started to understand more of God's intentions for humans, and that it was not for punishment or fear, but through love, growth, relationships, and joy. My journey in the past half year has sporadically led me to RJM, where I accepted Christ in front of Joyce, Denise, and my new house church shepherds, me and Hannah, three of whom, and I, of course, cried when I said yes. That following week, literally days after RJM, my parents reached out with apologies and open ears, becoming more willing to listen and understand my struggles in the past couple of years. My long-term best friends that I scared away asked to meet up and get dinner, so where we rekindled our relationship. So since then, for the last couple, honestly, weeks, my life has drastically changed ever since RJM. I feel lighter, I feel a lot happier, and I no longer feel a sense of doom and despair in my every waking moment in my life and activities. Now, I'm starting to believe that God has given me a life that he knew I could get through to teach me important lessons so I can eventually come back to him and help others. So I want to finish with a message for you all today. In Mark 12:30-31, it says, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, with all your mind, all your strength. But the second commandment is to love your neighbor as yourself. There is no commandment greater than these." God has been so gracious to show me that I was the neighbor that needed love. I was a person who was angry, despised God, filled with distrust and despair, a neighbor that was very difficult to love and have a relationship with. But by his grace, he has made me into a changed person. And I ask for you to do that for those people and VIPs you find difficult to love in your life, those people who have very different opinions of you, who look different from you, who might speak differently or you're scared of. There might just be a lot of pain and loneliness hiding behind the hard exterior that they show, but by his radiance shining through your loving behavior, they can also be changed. Thank you very much for listening.